Welcome to the Kelly Cardenas podcast, where attitude is everything. On today's show, I have been like a kid on Christmas. I woke up today. I was so excited. I've been watching videos. I've been listening to music. I have just been like completely engulfed in this young man, but not because of what he's done, but because of who he is. And one of my friends, Mark Willis, which I love you out there, Mark. I know that you're listening. You better be listening to every episode. But one of my friends, Mark Willis, told me about this friend of his that he had. And it was incredible because for me, I vetted that as my friend's friend. And then to be able to find out who this man is and the amount of time that we get to spend today, every single person out there is going to be enriched. He's a Dove Award-winning pianist. He's on the Billboard. I said that he won the Billboard, but he corrected me and said that he's been on Billboard charts. But 4 of his albums have debuted in the top spot. 23 albums, 11 have hit #1. He has over 3 billion streams of his music. He's collaborated with CeCe Winans. He's played at the White House. He's been on CNN. But most of all, before we even started recording, I could see his heart. And he does everything that he does for the right reasons. And that's why the right things keep happening. So please, please, please welcome Mr. Paul Cardall to the show.
Hey guys, thank you so much, Kelly, man. I love you. I love your posts. Everything you're doing is so energetic and optimistic. It's contagious. Thank you.
Paul, I got in trouble the other day. One of my buddies said that I was aggressively positive. And I said, well, what do you mean?
What?
And he said, sometimes, this is what he said. And I'm sure that you have this because in watching you, I'm a fan of your posts. I'm a fan of who you are. But he told me that sometimes he turns it off because he doesn't have the capacity to be positive in his life. Have you had this happen to you? Because you're an overly positive guy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But at the same time, there's so much bullcrap that's being sold to us. There's so much darkness shoved in our face. We have to be loud. We have to be so loud because the sunshine is brighter than the darkness.
So when people look at you, 23 albums, 11 are #1. That's like some Tom Brady stuff that you're just like, I'm out. You know what I'm saying? Like I got my 11 rings. Tom Brady, you got 7. I got 11. I'm out. And a lot of people, when they see that part, they see Paul that plays all over the world, plays at the White House, does, sold out concerts all over the world has won the Billboard. And a lot of people say, well, it's easy for you to say that, life should be good and you should be positive because your life is perfect. Can you talk to life not being perfect, Mr. Paul?
Yeah, man, you know what? I think a lot of what fuels us is the fact that we go through excruciating pain in life. And there are those of us who take all that negative energy and we turn it into real positive energy. And I think there's a higher power, obviously, that's working through us. And if we allow that higher power to lead us rather than us trying to drive, Kelly Clarkson, Jesus take the wheel kind of stuff, we start to see a lot more success happening when we get out of the way. Anyone who goes to AA, 12 steps, you have to acknowledge that you have to let go and let God take over, whatever that God is in your life. For me, it's Jesus, because he's a God who weeps. He's a God who bleeds. He's got scars like me. And that's kind of the bottom line. But I came into this world with only half a heart. I'm not even supposed to be here. My parents tell me they cut into my body when I was 23 hours old. And then excuse me, and then they overheard the doctors basically go, this kid, he won't even live a year. He's only got a half functioning heart. And I kept living and had surgery after surgery. But there was that time in my life where I was like, what in the world? You're a teenager. You're trying to figure out why, what, where. You're so confused. You're growing hair. You're doing all kinds of things. What is this life all about, And a very close friend of mine, and this is a tragic scenario, but a very close friend of mine was killed in a car accident. And here my family had been fighting for my life the entire 15, 16 years that I'd been on this planet. My dad stressed over medical bills. And then out of nowhere, this friend of mine, like 1 minute he's here and he's gone. So I was led into my parents' living room that had a piano. And I hadn't touched that since I was 8 years old. Took like 6 months of lessons. And I was like, I'm outside playing. I'm not doing this crap. I don't like this at all. So I'm out. And my mom had 8 kids. So she can't keep track of what's going on either. And so I'm grieving, trying to figure out what life's all about. I looked at the piano, and the piano to me, Kelly, was a puzzle. And that puzzle was life. And I needed to figure out how to put the pieces together. And as I hit one note, you know, I hit it in a way that was like, this doesn't sound like those hospital beeps. And then I hit a second note and a third note, and it was a melody. And right there and then in that moment for me, and I think all of us have these transformative moments, these euphoric moments where something happens that really defines uh, that we are not alone in the universe. And at that moment, I felt this overwhelming feeling of love pour through me. And it was like God saying, I got you. I'm in control. And that kind of began the process of anytime I was in a dark place, I would go to the piano and process what is going on so that I could then communicate without words, because there are no words. And Hans Christian Andersen says, where words fail, music speaks. And music speaks to us in a way that the human language cannot. And that was the beginning of my career, my life, my calling, and it defined my purpose.
So, Paul, how can somebody find their purpose? Because I mean, it's something that is talked about in society today a ton, and but I think a lot of times people have a tough time being able to identify theirs. They emulate or they even imitate. So a lot of people out there that see Paul and hey, he's got 23 albums, 11 of them hit number one.
Yeah.
I'm going to start banging on the piano too. Um, how, and if I banged on the piano, it ain't gonna, I mean, it's not gonna help any of my, challenges in life. It's gonna create more of them. So
Yeah.
how does one, like a listener out there, how would they begin what would be the first step on moving towards their purpose?
I think that is the big mystery that we have in our lives of something we're trying to figure out. And I think life is a wrestle. We're constantly wrestling with who we are. We're negotiating with friends. If you're married, you negotiate the rest of your life. And you pretty much are trying to figure out where do I fit in the scheme of things. I can't do this. I can't do that. And so often we focus on what we can't do. Okay. Instead of making a list of the things we can do. Anytime you're meeting with a therapist and you're going over your past trauma, they give you the timeline of all the worst things that ever happened. And when I was going through it, I said, can we also make a list of all the positive things that's ever happened so I can reprocess those? Um, and so I think what happens is we are attracted to things that we are interested in. And as we mature and grow, we find an even stronger interest in those things. And some of those things are gifts. And if you work on those gifts and you get better and better at them, whether it's hair or writing or teaching or playing the piano, as you work on those, it becomes your talent. And that's what defines your purpose. And some people have many talents, some people have one talent. And it's up to us to then try to imitate those who we think are the very best. Sting, Peter Gabriel answered the same question I will say when somebody asked, how do you get to where you are? And they say, and I say, surround yourself with people who are much smarter, more talented, and nicer than you'll ever be. And that, in essence, has been kind of what's worked for me. But it's different for everybody. And I think we also can say, God, lead me where I can best uh, use the gifts you've given me. And if I don't know what these gifts are, God, show me. And you keep doing that, you'll know exactly. But you have to put it out there into a higher power, something out there that's much, much more, because we don't know what's going on. We really don't. We need help. So,
So, Paul, probably one of the most prophetic movies and most profound movies of our generation is Talladega Nights. And
oh, I thought it was Step Brothers. Darn it.
and in Talladega Nights, there was a scene where they're praying and they say, "My Jesus looks like
That's right.
X.
That's
My
right.
Jesus has wings." And he says, "Sweet baby
Right.
Jesus." And he went through and he was like, "Mine is this, mine is that." What does your God look like? The reason why I say is because in my eyes, Jesus is gangster. Like he never had a
Oh man.
process. He
Right.
healed people. They said, "I'm blind." He said, "You could see." He threw some mud on him and then told him not to tell anyone and then left town so he wouldn't get the glory. What is Paul's God? What does Paul's Jesus look like? Like
Yeah.
what
See,
does he have
it,
wings? Is he sweet baby?
oh, love it. Love it. I get excited talking about Jesus. So does Depeche Mode. Um, but I think the thing is we write Jesus off so quickly because we affiliate Jesus with religion, organized religion, which is something that men pull together and try to tell you. So right now we're trying to tell you what we think, and that's where you have to let everybody else get out of the way because there is a personal Jesus for you. And I will quote Depeche Mode on that. There is a personal Jesus because Jesus customizes the curriculum for each one of us. And the minute we start to go, that person's not doing this, that person's not doing that, we've just stepped out of our own church because it's me and Jesus. Okay, um, we want to create a Jesus that we think everybody needs. But there's a Jesus specifically for you because he made you, he created you, he knows everything about you. And I love and respect faiths all over the world. Um, if Hindus are going to hell, I want to be right there with them because they're the most peaceful people on the planet. I have Muslim friends. I have a huge Muslim fan club in India run by this amazing brotherhood of young men out by New Delhi. But for me, Jesus is the God who bleeds. He's Yeshua. He's the God who weeps. He's got scars. I've got scars from trauma in my life, having heart surgery. Um, you know, and I would say around that time that I was learning to play the piano and composing music, I had gone through these things where when you're born with half a heart and you hear your parents and the doctors say he's not going to make it, you're not thinking about retirement, Kelly. You're thinking about what the next life is, what happens next.
Mm.
And they do say people that have trauma as children are more likely to have visions and dreams. That's a psychology phenomenon. But thank God I did because I love that stuff. And it does in fact happen for me where I feel so close to something divine and holy. Um, the other thing I think is there's such a doomsday spirit in the world today by organized religions because they have to control the flock with fear. They don't intend to do it that way, but that's how they are when they're in a big group. Start talking because it's easier to talk negative than it is to talk positive. When we see the entire world coming together and saying, Putin, knock it off, that tells me that Jesus is coming as a thief in the night because love is on the move. We are more, and I don't want to generalize too much, but are more in harmony with the world than we've ever been since the first man because communication is shrinking, travel is available. I can go on the Discovery Channel and learn about people in India, people in countries I've never been to and go, that's a father, that's a brother, that's a sister, that's us, you know? So God is breaking down stereotypes, breaking down all this stuff. We have a lot of work to do, but Jesus, in a nutshell, um, he's the author of all that. He is love in the flesh.
Paul, what was the foundation that your parents laid into you that helped you to be able to, because you really you have every right to be mad. Like you were born with half a heart. You had,
Yeah.
major surgeries up until 13. And there was one where you went into surgery and they said, we're going to do this surgery. And if you live for a year, you're going to have to come back. And then we're going to have to reconstruct that bad boy again.
Yeah.
You have every right to be angry and to be mad and to be dark, but you are not. You are light to every. What was imparted in you early? And can we bottle it and can all of us drink it? Because we want it.
Well, I think no, I think I have been angry. I've been very mad, but I think you have to channel where that anger is. You have to try to not let you have to my mother used to uh, jar pickles and things like that. You have to contain your anger so it's not hurting other people. You do go through all this stuff. You do process all that. C.S. Lewis, when, finally he's in love, he's got this woman who he wants to marry. She has cancer. They get married in the hospital. She dies. And he goes, I preached the meaning of pain, but I never really understood the meaning of pain until I lived through it because now I know what love really is,
Mm.
what love really means. Um, I I was blessed to be born into a Mormon home, and Mormons are very, which is the church, the branch of Mormonism my parents are part of that I loved being part of was the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and in that they believe in visions and dreams and miracles that you can make miracles happen, and so that was instilled in me that we can lay hands on you, we can pray, we can fast, and we can get stuff done. And really, it's the power of intention, is what they were doing. They were manifesting positive affirmation. And when you have that and you're sick and you get in an illness, it changes your attitude because you're now putting the creator as part of your life experience. You're not just going on um, the doctors alone. You are going, I know you guys can be successful, versus can you guys be successful? What about but if it's like you're rooting them on. And that's kind of what Mormons like to cheer up everybody and root everybody on. And I love that optimistic spirit. And I loved it when I was part of that faith. And um, so I think, but mainly the key principles there is my mother was optimistic. My father was a journalist and he asked a lot of questions. And so those two things were instilled in me. So whenever it hits the fan, um, it's not easy, but you have to keep going because you got one shot. And this life, I fought like hell to be here. And I have friends that throw in the towel because they have addictions. They think they're going to hell. They don't know how valuable they are. They don't know how amazing they are. They think they're a burden to their spouse, a burden to their children. They're so unselfish that they aren't selfish enough to love this world. And yeah, I mean, I could go on and ramble into all that, but the bottom line is this life is it's amazing. And it's hard. It's really hard, Kelly, but it's amazing, right?
Paul, what is something, because you do interviews all over the world. You're on TV constantly, and whether it be podcasts, things like that. What is something that you've never got a chance to say, that you've never told anyone, um, that you wish they would have asked you?
Oh man, that's a difficult one. Um, I think maybe I've never been asked about what it's like to live with another person's heart because my heart and my chest is not mine. It's from a young man that took his life. Because I needed a heart transplant. And God said, change your heart. So I took that very seriously. Um, yeah, I was 30. Yeah, what is it like? The one thing I've never talked about is the side effects of getting a second chance. Um, if you get a second chance in life, you get this big miracle. We always talk about, let's pray for this family. Let's send all our love and prayers and energy. We do all that. And when you're in the moment and you're being the one prayed for, you feel this love because everybody's sending it to you, you know, and you can associate that with God pouring down his love on you. But then the minute the miracle happens, everyone stops praying. The day the funeral's over, people stop praying. And you feel these wings that were carrying you fall off. And you start to fall deep with gravity into the loneliness of grief, of rejection, of why me, survivor's guilt. It's PTSD, really. Um, and then you have to deal with, how do I reframe what I've gone through in order to get back that element of joy and energy that you had. And that's where it's difficult. And that's where, when you are born again, literally, it's not then an easier path. It's a different path. And what you have to learn to do is accept a new reality, that the old you is gone and you are brand new, and you're learning about who you are again for the first time.
Paul, can you talk to us about the gravity of that too? Because I don't think that a lot of people really understand the amount of pressure that comes on you then too, because here's all these people praying for you. Here's Paul, this like gifted miracle.
Yeah.
I don't think that a lot of times people talk to us or even go into the part about it that must be tough, and it must be a tough cross to, or, burden to carry, because like if I show up and I'm not great, people are like, well, I mean, okay, cool. I mean, but you're a miracle. Like, you were a miracle. You weren't supposed to live. You went through all these surgeries. You went through all these things. We prayed you up. You're this amazing pianist. Like, talk to us about the pressure that a human being, because you're a human being at the end of the day. It's not like you're just some superhero. Can you talk to us about that pressure to, maybe it's whether it be to perform at a certain level, to expect? How are you able to deal with those things?
Well, there's that famous quote from, Willy Wonka. Careful what you wish for, Charlie. Your dreams do come true. If you think about it enough, things happen. And, the whole concept of being a celebrity is a mirage. This is why so many of their lives are dysfunctional, is because it's hard to manage. There is no warning label on the box of becoming a success where everybody's watching you. And then you have a miracle happen. Doctors took my dead heart out, and they have enough knowledge now to raise me from the dead. You know, Jesus was the one that was known for doing that. And now, through doctors and organ donation, we're raising people all the time from the dead. So the whole Jesus idea, that's just commonplace to me. That's no big deal. What I'm concerned about is, once you get that miracle, you know, Lazarus. Lazarus was brought back from the dead, according to the New Testament account. And then it wasn't all roses after that. And when I die, I want to go talk to him and ask him what went down. How many times did he have to go speak about his miracle? But they wanted him dead because he was a miracle. And you get a lot of hate, particularly, excuse me, after I got my heart transplant. My marriage suffered, and I had so much PTSD that I had not worked through in the faith that I was part of, because um, the faith I was part of had a lot of answers, but the substance of real healing was not there. And so I would shove it under the rug and go and serve people. But that would slowly build over time. And I needed to address those things with real professionals. And by doing the work, you start to recognize that your identity is not what you thought it was. And then when you bring God into it, you start asking, where am I supposed to be? And if it's a customized curriculum, because I believe it's a customized curriculum, because you have your DNA and I have my DNA. If we had the same DNA, Kelly, it would be the same curriculum. So this is why Jesus only said, love others and love yourself and love me. He never, all those other rules, that's all the other guys coming up with, like, okay, now do this and this and this, because that's what he said. We're like, okay, sure, that's right. You heard him. And um, yeah, I mean, my marriage fell apart. I went through a divorce. Um, I think divorce is murdering your family. I think it's the worst thing in the world. And so many of us don't want divorce. And some of us, when we go through it, are not ourselves. We're so disassociated from reality. And then you have to process the whole thing. Fortunately, in our situation, we're still really good friends. We co manage. So, this whole idea of life's amazing, you have all these number one albums and you have this and that. Look, man, I'm just like everyone else. When it hits the fan, it hits the fan, and you have to deal with life. Um, and then I also discovered that the faith that I had grown up in was not where I was supposed to be. I and it has nothing to do with problems with that church. There's clearly problems with the church, but for me, I was asking God, I need to be healed mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And I'm doing every single thing that's required of me. I'm putting in all the work, Kelly. Why is Jesus not helping me and healing me? And it was because I had made lists and they had made lists for me. And finally, I was in the scriptures. It was Matthew 5, and Jesus talks about how he has come to fulfill the law. But then Paul, and never take Paul's words over Christ. People like to take Paul's words over Christ. No, take Christ first, and then back it up with some of these guys. Paul says, whosoever loves fulfills the law. So I was so focused on trying to behave instead of, and I was so hurt and tired of hurting, I forgot what it meant to be loved. Because you're not supposed to worry about yourself. You're supposed to worry about everybody else. But Jesus wants to, because he's a carpenter, he loves to fix things. So I became this broken miracle that he repaired. And I found myself leaving Mormonism. And I don't recommend that unless God is asking you to leave. And I felt compelled to leave and pursue a different path. And that is part of the process of healing, where you have to let go and let God take over. Stop making lists for yourself and start living. Wake up. This, I don't know. Don't you feel like there's this like idea that, oh man, I got to do this and this and this and this today. I got to get this done. I got to get that done. I got to do that, instead of like waking up and going, man, the birds are like having a fight out there. They're chirping really too loud. And I got a squirrel up here in my, you know, office space, and they're at odds with each other, but they're out there having fun. So it's the same no matter where you go, but you got to just, you got to just pause and live. And that's what I'm learning to do more of. And it's not easy, but it's a lot more rewarding and joyful.
So Paul, I want to dive into something that you said when you were talking about being able to. You alluded to it. Let go and let God. You said it earlier. I think did you say Kelly Clarkson? Or was Jesus take or no? It was
Yeah, yeah,
who is it? Who is it that sang that song? Jesus
one
take
of
the wheel.
those.
It's
Uh, Karen Carpenter? No.
no. We're gonna get in
Oh,
trouble because you're in Nashville and we're both struggling on
oh,
this one.
well, I know who it is. It's the blonde.
Yes,
Um,
that narrows it down to
she's
half
in
of
everything.
America. I
Not
know
Kelly. Now I'm
she was on American Idol. I know
Carrie Underwood.
Carrie Underwood. Okay, so let go, let God, let Jesus take the wheel. You know, we've got these lists and we're in an information age. We are in the largest coaching, structure of all time with information. And you do these six
Yeah.
steps, these seven
Yep.
steps, and everything's going to work out.
Yep.
Paul, can you help us to understand how? And I asked this question of one of my friends because I watch people, and a lot of times their routines become their religion. How does this? How do you keep that in line?
Well, routines are in place to self-soothe from our trauma, you know, and you either have healthy forms of self-soothing or you turn to unhealthy, um, and people know what those are. And what I'm learning to do, and this is something my wife has taught me very well, is to just be grateful, which is so cliche. It's so cliche, but it's like, I think the fact that Jesus, if you are a Christian, the fact that Jesus, if God comes and he suffers on a cross and he dies, I think we take that whole idea in vain by not trusting him to lead us. And so we make lists because we don't trust him. That's the bottom line. I think we are so self consumed with doubt and fear that we go to the extreme to find alternative solutions and we make those our God.
So help that person out there right now that's listening to you, and they were like, "Look, Paul is my man. I've heard, now I'm. If you haven't heard of Paul, you're under a rock. But now I just got introduced to Paul. He is the man. He's just been dropping knowledge this whole time. And then you said what you said, and they said that's easy for you to say, Paul, because things have been going well for you, but you don't know my
No,
struggle. I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. I don't know where rent's going to come from. I don't know if what's going to happen with my kids. My car just got repossessed.
right,
How are you
right.
going to tell me that I don't need to wake up and grind it out and get on my hustle and all the things that are today? What would you say to that person?
Well, first off, quick review. I I've been on a operating table probably about 47 times where they've put me under and they've cut me open. I didn't know if I was coming back out of those things. I've had countless friends commit suicide. Um, I know divorce. Um, I don't know abuse. I don't know abuse, but I know people who are abused. The bottom line is we have so much trauma. From the day we were born, we left our mother who had us in her body. And that was the safest place. And we want to go back into those type of safe places to be. Sometimes being under a rock, Kelly, is the easiest. What happens is we turn on the TV, which is pretty much a commercial for what you don't have. That's all. Everything on TV is programmed to program you to get by and not to live. Um, You have to go through pain. And, I've been turned on lately to Jordan Peterson. I didn't know much about Jordan Peterson. Skeptical. I'm skeptical of everybody I listen to. But Jordan talks about how life is not, you're really not meant to be happy here. You're a contender and you're constantly negotiating the challenges of life. But when you deprive yourself of certain things, you tend to have a lot more reward and joy in other things. The relationship with your wife, if you deprive yourself of things, the relationship with your wife is going to be much more intense, more beautiful. Little things like that. And I know what it's like to be broke. Right before I almost died with my heart transplant, I had no money. Like I didn't even know I was going to pay for surgery. And I put all my faith in God, and things just happen, man. You have to trust. I hate to say it's like magic, but you really have to trust a higher power, and that higher power will change you. My Muslim friends who, pray daily, they are happy people. I remember being in Sri Lanka and going into um, a mosque, and I didn't know these people. I didn't know any of these people, and a couple of the men invited me to come and pray with them, and I was like, I'm a Gentile, and I prayed with them, and then I was at a Hindu temple, and I saw this couple present their baby to the priest who looked like he just got out of the sauna. He had a shawl around him. I don't know the rituals or anything like that. And here the tears were falling down this mother's face. And I thought the ritual was strange because it's foreign to me as a Christian. But the tears were falling down this mother's face. And I thought, Jesus is right here in this moment because here is a committed set of parents to this child that's God's child that they're going to take care of. And so right there, I trusted in that moment going, there's something beautiful here happening. And so I think you have to remain completely open-minded, not create any walls of what is right and what is wrong. Um, and just be grateful that you woke up. Because every night I go to bed, I make sure I get up in the morning, having been through enough surgeries and things like that, and I can go on and on. And I don't know if those are the best answers, but I know that there are people who love you, who care about you, and don't ever let anyone say that you're not worthy or you're not valuable, and watch Kelly's posts, you know, because he's got great thoughts by the ocean, and do what he does. Dig into the scriptures, make notes, use those as a workbook. They're not sacred. You could throw your Bible across the floor. Um, if you don't have it marked up, you're not working.
Mm.
And the positive work I'm talking about is you're putting down thoughts and impressions you have that are yours and yours alone. And you can't share that with so and so down the street because he's not you. God told you what you needed, and that doesn't work for someone else. So leave them alone and let them live their life.
So, Paul, when you let God work, what I found is that it's exceedingly abundantly above anything that you could ever do. And I've been a bonehead in business. And for those out there that are listening that know me, you've known that I've almost tried to kill every single business that I've started, like single-handedly. Like if it would have went down the way that I wanted to, it would have failed. And God stepped in every single time. Can you talk to us, Paul, about a time where you made a decision, you were going in this direction, and God just snatched your butt out of it, but it turned out so much greater than if you had gone down your road?
Oh, Yeah. Um, there are so many times where you think that you have the right person in your life. And, when you are a very, um, when you love Jesus a ton of times, you tend to give people a lot of credit. And so my wife, who's very spirit of discernment, will step in and go, they know you love Jesus, and you'll give them the shirt off your back. And if I wasn't around, you would give them the car too. So she steps in. So I think you need to put someone in your life who is um, can protect you
Mm.
and see things clearly and challenge you. Um, but there's been countless times where I've, because I'm in the second marriage, my kids live in another state, and I go every month for a full week. Costs me a fortune, but you cannot get back your child's childhood, and so I'll invest their entire inheritance in me visiting them. But there are times where I could emotionally, as a father, go, "It's my time," but um, you have to allow your children, and this is something I learned over time, to live their best life. And sometimes that means you're not in it. And that takes a lot of strength to put them ahead of your own selfish, sad, lonely regret. Um, and so those are scenarios that are deeply personal, but we really have to, cross examine, is this going to be in the best interest for that person? Or is it just because I need this? I need this. And reality, our kids don't need us. We need them. They just need us to pay for things. you know, there's a lot more to it. You know what I mean?
Of
But
course, of course.
that's one of those things where it's like, I could live in the neighborhood. I could do this. I could buy this and do this. And, self-discipline with kids is very hard.
Mm.
You want to get them everything, man.
And it's tough. I mean, it's tough because most likely, you grew up with 8 kids, in the family. So, I mean, it, talk to us too about once you start to, and Mark and I had this conversation, once you start
Yeah.
to achieve a level of success, right? It's that you say no because you know it's the right thing to your kids as opposed to no, I can't actually do it. My dad said no to me because he didn't have the means at times. He was working hard and he did the best with what he could, but there was times where I asked for things and he physically there was no way that it was going to happen.
Yeah.
When your kid asks you for something, Paul, you can do it, but sometimes you have to say no. Can you help us on this as being a parent? How do we work that muscle to say no and know that it's the right thing at that time?
Sucks, man. It sucks. It's not easy, but I think that's having kids helps me understand why God says no a lot. You know, like the fact that we have kids and we want to give them everything. I mean, He wants to give us everything, but He doesn't. And we're like, well, where are you? Like a spoiled brat, you know? Um, Man, it's so hard not giving in. And I give in and I give in, but you need to have a strong partner. And I will say this in the fact that you have when you have a second marriage and you have step parents, and hopefully that stepmother is not the stepmothers of the Disney. I don't know. Walt Disney must have had a really bad stepmother or something, or because in every Disney movie the parents are dead and you get a bad stepmother. So I don't know why they're obsessed with death over there at Disney, but they are. So, so, but when you have a parent that's not bonded with them from infancy, they can look at things objectively and call you out on your bullcrap. And so you need help. Again, you can't just do this yourself. You need support and you need help. And, if that person is kind to your kids, then you can seriously take their advice, and you should take their advice. And so, my wife has been amazing, and their stepdad is unbelievable. He's not as cool as my wife, but I mean, he's unbelievable. And they love him and they call him dad, and that's cool with me. He's not, but he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard, but
Paul,
it's life, man.
can
And
you
I don't know
talk?
if that answers your
No,
question
it
though.
does. It helps a ton. But can you talk to my buddy Dave, my best friend Dave, and he should be listening out there. If you're not listening, Dave, you should start listening.
Dave.
My buddy
Dave.
Dave got divorced a couple years ago. He didn't think that that was going to happen. It wasn't in his plan. He's very much a planner. He's my best friend, and
Mhm.
I think the reason why we came together is because my plan is like, what's going to happen today, and let's roll. And his plan was like sticky notes everywhere in the world, and everyone listening that knows
Yeah.
Dave, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So when he got divorced, he was thinking, man, this is not what I planned. It wasn't on one of the sticky notes. And you have gone through divorce. I've gone through divorce. You now have a phenomenal wife. You have a phenomenal life. You have a great relationship with your kids. It's different than what you thought maybe when you started. Can you speak some life to him?
Well, I think it's the eighth habit of highly effective people to get divorced. No, it's actually not. It's the first on highly depressed people. No,
Yes.
um, I think what happens in divorce is it is one of the most traumatic experiences we'll ever face. And we are allowed in every aspect of our life to fail, but marriage. We can take biology 101 and fail it and fail it and fail it. But when you finally get that C plus, you can move on, and everybody's like, you did it. Good job. I don't know you want to admit how many times you failed, but I failed algebra 101 and 105 a lot. There's not enough. I would have tattooed the whole algorithms on me if I could have, but Mormons didn't do tattoos at the time. So, um, and so another reason I left, I wanted a tattoo. So right there, Dave. So anyways, you can cut that out. But the idea there is, man, it's hard. It's hard. It's not meant to be easy, but we can fail. And I think it takes time. It's like grief. It it does get better when you start to recognize what's best for the kids instead of what's best for you. But the pain never goes away. You just learn to live with it. You get stronger. You know, people self-soothe from divorce. You got to find healthy things to soothe yourself with. You know, if anything becomes an addiction, um, that's where you got to get some help. But I can see why divorce leads everyone to drink and smoke a lot of marijuana. Uh, not just some, a lot,
A lot.
and a bunch of other things. And it sucks, man. But you got to have good friends. You got to get out. You got to do stuff. You got to create adventures. Um, you just got to live. Keep moving.
Well, Paul, when we're looking at these things as far as the levels that you've accomplished in your career, and when I say this, I want people to understand, people that listen to our audience out there, they understand that we don't have people on the show for what they do. We have for who they are. And that has proven, I win today with you. Like I win.
Oh, you're kind.
But talk to us about, being a young pianist, right? If you got to speak to the Paul that did the first note that was different than the beep in the hospital room, and you were to say, like, dude, if you just did these three things on the piano, like, because of what you know now. And when I say
Yeah.
that, there's things like, say when I started off the podcast, and I want you to check this out, Paul. The first episode we recorded, I just put a microphone in front of me. And for those of you who listen to it, thank you so much. but the microphone was not connected to anything. It just looked cool. And I went, so
Larry King right there.
so, but if I was to look back at episode 1 and say, Kelly, if you did these couple of things, these things could work out amazing. Now, obviously, it's God's timing and all those things. But let's
Mhm.
go into that part. What would you say to young Paul that's just beating on the piano, knowing what you know now and being one of the best pianists in the world? What advice would you give to that young Paul?
That's it's such a good question, and I was talking to my wife about this yesterday, and I was talking to another songwriter. We were talking about young songwriters, and we were basically saying the reason they're going to be successful is because they don't know how hard it is. And the more we don't tell them that, the more likely they'll succeed. Because if you tell them everything that's going to take, they're not going to fight it. They're not going to keep that fight because it's in the mystery that we press forward and it's in the climb. Thank you, Miley Cyrus, who didn't really write that song. It was a Christian song and then she made it a hit song. But the climb is what. So I think the only thing I would have really said is, lighten up, have a drink once in a while. Um, and because I was, in the church at the time, I would have just said, no, no, no. Um, no, but seriously, I think what I would have done is I would have given me encouragement that I believe in you. Um, and when someone tells you you can't do it, ignore them. Ignore them because they don't have what you have. And I'd say that to anybody because everyone is so different. You have something to contribute that nobody else is going to contribute. And it's this tapestry that when we flip it over, we'll see what God created. And so encourage, encourage, encourage. Because I don't think I'd want to give any music advice, or I wouldn't have worked. I, I, I I think God was in such control that I would have just encourage, I don't know what Tommy Boy would have told Tommy Boy, but probably not light the car on the fire, off the, you know. I do know what. Stop playing Halo.
I love that we've had a Talladega Nights reference in this show, and we just had a Tommy Boy reference also.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
this is like the
Go
holy
hold your
grail.
go hold your daughter and stop playing Halo.
What do you think the myth is about accomplishment?
Well, it's all subjective. What is accomplishment? I don't know that. I think accomplishment. People like to talk about like the things they've done because that's the society we've created. We need to know somebody's value because we don't trust anyone. You know, like this guy's done this. Okay, so you believe him. Um, well, that's great. How do you how do you talk to your wife when you're alone with her?
Mm.
You know, um, so the one thing that my wife always says to me, and it always gets me right back, is like, if your fans could see you right now,
Mm.
and it used to be if your kids could see you right now, but when you have fans that hold you up to this standard, because you've been touched by the Lord in some miraculous way, they think that you're like this God figure, and you're not. You're just this horrible, imperfect sinner who's just trying to be a light, but you're a moth. You're not a butterfly because you know the darkness, but you're obsessed with the light. You go in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. And yeah, man, it's just accomplishment. I don't really know that I like that word.
Mhm.
at all? What does it mean to you?
Well, the reason why I ask is because my mom was very, very, very strong on this from jump. She told me that I was awesome and I was disconnected from my accomplishments, and so
Interesting.
she said you're not awesome because you got an A, you're not awesome because you got a C, or I got D's and F's a lot. Um, you're awesome and disconnect yourself. And once you disconnect yourself from your accomplishment and you accept, you go from accomplishment into acceptance and accepting the greatness of who you are,
Oh,
then
wow.
then the greatness starts to come to you as opposed to you chasing it, because anytime that you ever chase anything, it runs away. And the right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
that part for me was, it was one part of three that my parents gave me from a very early age.
See,
Um,
and that's what's so interesting is the difference because when you ask, I have this idea of what you're trying to get at, but you have this different idea. And that's what's so amazing in conversation with people. And this is why we need to respect um, where people are coming from
mhm,
because we assume and we need to
absolutely.
listen more, you know? So I want my kids to accomplish a lot. I don't want them to know they're valuable because of what they accomplished,
Yes.
you know? They already know how loved they are, you know? Like my daughter today, she sends me this message this morning. Why is there so much adultery, rape, and incest in the Bible? She's 16. I said, "You've been watching Criminal Minds." Um, she asked me that question, and I said, why do you think?" She goes, it just baffles my mind. Maybe it's because God's trying to tell us that even though we suck, He's not going to quit on us." I was like, "Well, those are some great list of accomplishments." By the
And
anyways,
well,
kids
and
say the darndest things.
they do, and I think, staying in that accomplishment part. The reason why I ask too is because I think a lot of times people they look at you and they, over 3 billion streams of your music,
I didn't
accomplishment,
do that. I
right?
didn't do that.
And you're very humble in it, but it's happened. It's part of. But I remember when people would tell me like, oh, when you have a 6-figure company or a 7-figure company, right? And they would say that, and I was like, okay, cool. And I came from a small town and I had no idea. And then I realized that $1 million business is nothing more than $3,750 and some change a day for a
Hmm.
5-day work
Yeah,
week. And you accomplish that. It's actually less if you do a 7-day work week. So $3,700 a day to produce in your company. Not to say that it's simple. I mean, it's easy, but it's pretty simple when you break down numbers. And so, but as I hit these benchmarks that I thought as a kid that I was going to hit, and it was going to be like, bam, life change. Nothing changed, Paul. That I still
that's right.
looked at it, right? So, can you talk to us about this? Because some people, I had a guy talk to me today, and he's like, I'm working towards this, but I don't have enough downloads right now. And what I was thinking is, I think he's one of the greatest speakers of all time. That stuff is going to come. Just keep doing what you're doing. What would you say to
Yes,
the person that says to you, well, Paul, when I get to this place, I'm going to work my tail off and not talk to my wife for a long time, because at some point we're going to go on vacation and then everything's going to be okay.
oh, yeah. Um, I have this YouTube channel called All Art Adventures, and this is what I'm talking about is we wait. We wait to do things because we don't have the money. In meanwhile, we're buying all kinds of bull crap that we don't need in the house. We're buying all kind of tchotchkes and things like this. We're wasting it on entertainment that we don't need, where you could go and buy a memory. You can't take all that crap around with you. But if you take your kids or your wife or somewhere and you pay for this trip or whatever, you then carry that with you all over the world. Okay. That nice car, you can't carry that. I don't even own a car anymore. I just rent cars. The American Express gives you you have car insurance, you get a car rental, um, and I travel all the time. So this is what I do. I don't own a car. I had a really nice M series. was like, why am I driving this? Because it's cool. And now, like, the car out there is like, it's a white Kia and it's got 2,000 miles on it. And I feel like it's going to blow over when the tornado comes in here. But I can't take it with me. And if I die, I can't take it with me. So what is it for? Um, the other thing that you were talking about is companies and creating companies, and with 3 billion streams, they told me at Pandora, and this was about 10 years ago. So this is when Taylor Swift was just really blowing up. She had just turned to do her pop music. Okay. So she was the biggest thing. I was out streaming her on Pandora Radio, and that made no sense to me. No sense. And what I learned was I had been doing this thing slow and steady like a tortoise for 15 years. Taylor came out of nowhere. They put a ton of money into it. Um, she was a hare. Okay. So it's the tortoise and the hare. She does look kind of like one of those tall hares. And here I am, this little turtle. But it's not like it's competition with her, but pop music comes and goes. And the very best stuff stays around. But instrumental music, there's something eternal about it. It lasts a very long time and it's always there. And people listen to instrumental music and they don't even know who the artists are. And so people were thumbs upping it, and it's slow and steady when the race. So over time, um, I was doing what I loved, what I felt my calling was. And yeah, I wanted to be at the Grammys and I wanted to be this, but I accepted that's not what God made me to be. And I wouldn't even know how to back up, Leonard Skinner, or I like to be on stage, but I don't even know how to do any of that stuff. God made me to play the piano the way I play the piano. I'm not a singer. You have to accept what you are not and embrace what you are and love it and then share the hell out of it. And slow and steady wins the race. But you do need to study and try to figure out how things are done. You can't just put out a song. You need to know strategy. You need to pay attention. And you have to surround yourself with people who are way smarter than you are. And the great thing about the days when I was Mormon is I didn't drink. So I'd be at parties and everyone's drinking, telling all their secrets. I'd be like, okay, do this. So
Paul, what are some of the uncommon practices that you do to get the uncommon results that you get?
common practices. Um, I think one thing that's uncommon is I we try to go. My wife and I go places a lot together because when your relationship, which is like a record player, when it's not skipping, you're in a flow. Things are good. So I spend a lot of time dating my wife.
Mm.
Um, and she spends time dating. She's got her hands full. She didn't know what she was signing up for, but I've been reminded. But it skips, the record skips, and it's like, well, what do we need to? We'll go for a weekend somewhere and get away, or and then you start to make a little bit more money, and you can go places and do things. Um, you have to make time for that. You build your career around your travel. You build your career, list what you want to do in life, and build a business around that. Don't build your life around a business. Do the other because it's your life, it's not theirs. So that's an uncommon thing. The other thing is, what's your reality? Your reality is when you're on a vacation with your wife. What's not reality is when you're home working. Choose what your reality is and make that the priority. It sounds upside down, but where were we? We went to see her family in Europe. and that's expensive. But while we were there, I decided to go skiing and do some things I hadn't done before, and like that stuff I can carry with me everywhere and remember that rather than I didn't bring anything back. People travel and they bring so much back with them. Like I see people take so many suitcases. It's like we got our little backpacks, you know, and my backpack usually has most of her stuff in it, anyways. So, but you just gotta. Life's too short, man. You gotta go out and do stuff and have fun and celebrate it.
Paul, when did music start to talk to you and start to talk to you in a language? Because, and when I was looking at a lot of your whether it be interviews or even listening to your music, when I heard the interviews at first, I was like, you were talking about it and you said that, winter has a sound and September, September is the changing of the leaves and, all these things. And I was like, I love me some Paul. I don't know that I'm going to feel that when I listen to the music. And then I listened to the music and I swear on cue, brother, like September was in my house. December was in my house. I felt snow. I felt it cold. How do you do this? And when did this happen? Like, was it, do you
Yeah,
see music physically?
no, no. You know what I'll do is I'll sit down. Like the record you're talking about is called December. I wanted to go into a studio, and this is kind of something I've learned over time because I have like 20 something records. My best ability is done when I've got a deadline and I go into a studio and I'll sit at a piano and I'll just tell them to hit record and I'll improvise 8 hours of just straight. I'll play something 3, 4, 5 minutes, then do something different. And I don't stop. If there's a problem, I fake my mistake. I figured out how to massage it over. Like when you're cutting hair and something's missing. You just so so basically you just keep going. There's a mistake, but you don't think about it. You keep going. And then you do another version of it, another version of it. And eventually, like I did 40 songs and we took the best 12, you know, and you'll remember the best 12 moments of your life after you've done 40 great moments. Um, and that's what I made the album. Then I go, what is the title? Because I don't know why they make us title things these days. Mozart had Symphony 5 in A. You know, they were smart back then. They didn't have some like big name. Now we have to go, you know, uh, can you do Under Pressure? I'm like, no, but I can do Bohemian Rhapsody. You have to come up with titles. And for me, the music reminded me of transitions in life. And I had just um, resigned from something I loved with all my heart, but I just felt compelled to leave it. Um, and this is like the changes of the seasons. And so that's where I started to put titles to the songs. So I take the feeling of the music, then I go, this is what it sounds like. This is what it feels like. Rather than, okay, I'm going to do a sunset right now. I'm going to do, that's some people do that. For me, coming up with titles is the hardest thing to do. And even today, you have to like meta tag it all. You have to make sure it's a hashtag and it's like under 140 characters and you have a great 15-second spot in the song. That's what they're thinking about. That's why you have 20 writers on a Justin Bieber track, They're calculating that stuff.
So, Paul, whenever I've come in contact with masters like you, there's always the place in them that is in awe of another master that has nothing to do with what they do, right? So today, I'm super curious guy. We had a men's group this morning, and a guy comes in, and he was like, he said something about what he does, and he's like, but it's not interesting. And I said, well, what is it? And he said, well, I sell antique weapons. And I was like, that's the coolest thing in the world, man. Like, talk to me about it. He starts telling me about this rusty bayonet that his dad gave him when he was like 10 years old. And I was like, wow, that's
Wow.
child abuse. And then,
Wow.
but he tells me this and he made this whole business out of it. I'm freaked out. I'm like, yes, I'm like a little kid. Talk to me about when, like, and people ask me about this. They're like, who would you like to have on the podcast ultimately? And I'm like, there's two, Chuck Woolery and Wayne Newton. Like Chuck Woolery had the
Wow.
most game. Chuck Woolery had the
Yeah.
most game back in the day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
Wayne Newton was that. I mean,
Yeah.
can you imagine the chains, the open shirt?
Love it.
And I'm
And we'll
not.
both be back in 2 and 2,
That's what I'm
because
saying, and I'm not even saying from Wayne like I want your music. I'm just saying
yeah.
Wayne, I just want you. You know what I mean? So
Did you hear that track with Brandon Flowers? Wayne Newton and Brandon Flowers. Did you see the cover of
no,
them on there was a cover of them on Billboard magazine. It's the coolest. It's when Brandon's album about Vegas came out. And Wayne's on one of those tracks, but it's you would love this Billboard cover.
can
It's
I
Wayne Newton, Brandon Flowers.
can I tell you my Brandon Flowers story?
Dude, I love Brandon Flowers.
Okay, so uh, Brandon Flowers, before he was who Brandon Flowers is, used to come in the salon where I worked at in Vegas. And he's sitting and all of us are around and he's dating this girl that comes in and
Hmm.
someone gives him a hard time because he's wearing his girlfriend's pair of shoes and we gave him a hard time because they were wearing the same size. But I said to Brandon, I said, and before he was Brandon Flowers, before he was the Killers, all the stuff, I say to him, so what do you do, man? And he's like, I'm gonna be a rock star. And I said, oh, cool. So what restaurant do you work at? And and he told me about it and he's like, but I really want to be a rock star. That's what I want to do. I was like, oh, cool. And I was like, high five. And then he applied for the place where I worked.
Wow.
He came in, did a hangout day, which we do, and he was working at the front desk. And I let him know that he wasn't material for us on my life. And then the next time that I saw him, Paul, I pulled up in valet behind his Bentley after the Killers had just gone
Dude,
crazy. And I was like,
dude.
I'm that dude that didn't hire you, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like,
That is an amazing, I fired Lindsay Sterling from a gig before she went off and became this famous violin sensation. It's isn't that a weird feeling?
oh my
Like
gosh.
they don't fit in that predicament, certain thing, but then they like blow up, and it's like it's that scene in Pretty Woman when she goes back in and it's like I bought everything. Sorry, you know,
Big mistake. Big, big,
big mistake,
big mistake.
which is amazing. Yeah, I love those guys, but
So
yeah,
tell me about the person that you become a little kid with, like that you have those pinch me moment and
you know,
like who is it or what is it?
there- there's two people. There's one guy. I don't know that a lot of people know who this is. I met this guy in Nashville, and I couldn't even talk. My wife thought I was like, "What is wrong with you? You can talk to anybody." His name's Andrew Peterson, and he's a Christian songwriter, but he owns a this organization called the Rabbit Room, and he's so smart, and he's written all these books. Um, but he's created this sub community of Christian writers that will never be on the radio, but all their songs are the most motivating doctrinal pieces of work. And I met him, and I'm like, he's really tall, and his music had so much impact on me. Andrew Peterson, and most Christian artists all love this guy. Um, I could not talk. And every time I've seen him, I've been like, I can't talk. And finally I did one time, and it didn't go well. So I've had opportunity, but I'm like a bum fool. Then the other guy, I'm not quite sure, was Terry Brooks. Terry Brooks produced all of Rush's albums up to 2112. I met him in Canada because I signed to the same record label as Rush, which was my childhood band that I loved. Why a piano player was on the same record label as the greatest trio of all time, I don't know why, but record industry is dysfunctional. Um, and I met this guy. I couldn't talk. I wanted to ask him about this and this and this and this and this and this, but I will mention a third. There's one other guy that I probably will be the same around, and that's Peter Gabriel. And I've never met Peter Gabriel, but man, just people do amazing things, and I don't know why we act like that in front of them. And I'll be like that in front of Jesus. I'll be like, I can't believe I'm here. You know?
Paul, tell me about the last time that your wife checked you. Like that,
Oh,
I talk about the stories all the time, like, coming off the road and having people either take pictures or, saying hello or just being excited. And then I get home and she's like, yeah, yeah, dummy, take out the trash. Like, give us a specific on this when your wife checked you.
I think she checks me daily because I'm so intimidated by her because she is so strong mentally. She's everything I want to be.
Mm.
And she's an anchor. She is the anchor in my life. People talk about the church being a boat. I see Jesus on the ocean and he calls for Peter to leave the boat and he's on the boat right, and he's on the water. And everybody that's listening, artists are very distracted. So just so you know, this goes somewhere. But Jesus is on the water and he tells Peter to leave the boat. Now, when Peter starts to sink, um, he does not look back at the church for help. He looks straight ahead to Jesus, and Jesus takes him. But the anchor that keeps everything in place for that whole scene to take place is my wife. Um, so, yeah, I mean, there's times where she checks me, but it's not the way maybe my first wife did. Like, you should quit. Your ego's real high. Go work at Costco, and I'm like, well, if I can be the sample person, maybe. But my wife does it in such a way that it's like, I don't know, man. You know how certain people just know how to say the right thing without you feeling like garbage?
Yes.
But it's motivating. It's motivating. She's more of a Wayne Dyer, I'm going to check you, than, like a coach who's really pissed off. You what do you mean you didn't blow up the football? Why is it flat? You're going to get us all in trouble.
So Paul, also too, I always think about this scenario, right? You have a master at your craft like yourself. That I mean, and when I say world renowned, like I even had to check the spelling of that because I don't use it I don't use it in my own language or as far as for me. But you are that.
Yeah.
Do you sometimes like when you go into a public place, right? So you're in a public place and maybe a couple of people who are under a rock don't know who you are, and there's a piano. Do you ever just hop on and go at it and freak somebody out? Do you do these kind of things? Like you'll see Shaq, be in Walmart and buy somebody a bike. Do you
Yeah.
do you do that sometimes? Do you show up at places and just hammer away like, and do it? Or have you done it?
There's times in the past where I did. Um, and this is where I'm at in my life right now, where it's work and you have to kind of get back to you get burned out. So it's like I want to take a break. I want to
Okay.
try other things and do other things. But we were at Sandals, not a plug for Sandals, but we were at Sandals, Jamaica, and we didn't know anybody. Nobody knew us, and it was great because um, I like going places where you meet people who are strangers. They don't know you. You don't know them. They just think you're some weird artist or weird dude with a really good looking wife and cool wife. And um, they said, "Hey, there's a piano here tonight somewhere, and we need to find someone who plays the piano because we all want to sing some Neil Diamond." And So they're like, well, what do you do? And we're going around the room. What do you do? What do you do? I'm like, my wife's like, well, he plays piano. She totally like volunteered me. So that night at Sandals, I think it was 6 hours. These people were so drunk. We sang Sweet Caroline like 30 times. And I've never even played that song before, but I just kind of followed along. And they were so drunk, it didn't matter because I could have played the wrong thing and they would have still been Sweet Caroline. Wah,
Bow, bow,
you know.
bow.
Yeah, totally. Everybody's into that song. Um, but yeah, so there are those moments. And sometimes when I see a piano and there's nobody around, I'll go sit down
Yeah.
and I'll play it. It's kind of like Tom Brady seeing a football.
Yeah.
If you see a football and you're Tom Brady, you're gonna go, I gotta go throw that thing or check the pressure.
Paul, who's the Mount Rushmore in the piano game?
Oh
To you,
man,
to
there's
you. If you had
everybody.
to choose four, if you had to choose four, and you said these are the Rushmore, who would that be?
hmm
Because the fifth one is
Well,
you. I mean, there's obviously five in my head, and you're up there. So who are the other four that are next to you?
well, if we're going on like, I would say,
No, we're going on irrational. I like this because I'm Paul and I'm me, and this is who I like, and this is who my Mount Rushmore is.
well, I would say Ray Manzarek, who was the keyboard player for the Doors. He is amazing. Somebody that's putting out albums right now, I would say Ludovico Uinaldi. He did the soundtrack for Nomadland. Well, they took his music and put it in that film. I have a lot of respect for one of my friends that's in the piano guys, John Schmidt. He knows how to pound that piano. Um, and and then, man, there's so many amazing piano players. But I would have to say I really like and respect um, Chris Martin from Coldplay because he doesn't take it serious. He's just naturally good making the pop songs on that piano. You get to see some of what he can do on this last record, and then even the record before that, because he is pretty good at it. But I love what he does in the way he combines things. So I'm constantly watching other piano players because they are way better than I am. Again, I know what I do, and I just try to stay close to what God needs me to do with it. And I recognize, man, I if I start to covet what they're doing, I'm just not happy. Successful people love to covet what other successful people are doing. And I'm done with that. That game ended, you know. There's moments where you feel that temptation to go, man, I wanted why didn't I write that song? You just have to accept, that's what it is.
Well, Paul, I
So
I started the I started the podcast because of people like you, like iconic people in the world that I wanted to show my kids that iconic people like yourself that to the world side when we talked about accomplishment that all these things happen, but that you're not a superhero, that you're a man that has
yeah.
a phenomenal attitude and you add work ethic to it, you put God first. What advice would you have for Maddox and McKenna? Maddox is 10 years old. He's a little superhero.
Yeah.
McKenna's 13 years old and is the wisest little, biggest heart that I've ever seen in my entire life. What advice from Uncle Paul would Maddox and McKenna get? And if you could use both their names, it would be awesome.
So Maddox and did you say Kennison?
McKenna.
McKenna. I love that name, Maddox and McKenna. So for McKenna and Maddox, I would basically say to first off, you know that your parents are not perfect, and that's okay. There's going to be times where you go, oh my gosh, they're superheroes. They're amazing. Then there's going to be times where you're like, they're not very smart. And I know so much more. I need to help my parents. But I would say never underestimate how valuable you are to God, to your family, to your friends, to yourself, and you think clearly about what it is you want for yourself. Um, and I'm not talking about material things like what kind of person do you want to be when you're older? And then I want you to put that up on a shelf and go, okay, that's the future. That's what I'm going to be. Meanwhile, I'm going to go outside. I'm going to play. I'm going to enjoy today. And you're not even going to think about tomorrow. You're just going to go out and have fun today and go make somebody happy today. And then tomorrow you may think, there's that person I'm going to be. But I'm going to go outside. I'm going to go play. I'm going to go make somebody happy. And if you keep that up, um, you're going to find you're going to have a lot of friends.
Paul, for our audience and for your audience, can you tell us something that neither of those audiences know about Paul?
Oh, man. Yeah, I don't know. I think what do people not? There's like so many things. Where do you start? My desk is a mess.
That encourages so
I've,
many people, Paul.
I've got this here and this here. This background looks amazing. Um, I have a mug. I got coffee mugs everywhere. My keys are everywhere. Contact lenses are everywhere. Earwax is right here. Um, my iPods are right here. I got my wife gave me nuts because I need healthy fats, and I got Himalayan salt because you're supposed to do Himalayan salt and lemon and water every morning because it's a natural Gatorade. It keeps your electrolytes going all day, so your metabolism stays up.
Wow.
Yeah, weird. My wife is a very healthy human being. She's a fitness competitor, worked for Rick Warren at Saddleback Church, ran their Daniel plan for a long time, and she's just really got her head on her shoulders. So, yeah, I mean, I think the other thing is, I think I'm a little because I'm an artist. I'm a little uh, obsessive, compulsive. I try to control situations, and a lot of times when people talk about things, um, very positively about things, it's because they've had to face those things because they sucked at it. And I've sucked at being patient, at learning to not be angry, um, dealing with trauma, you know? So you can talk all day, but the reality is it's every day is a gift and a curse. But you have to accept both, light and darkness. And this is why I'm a moth among butterflies. You have to know what you are
Wow.
and be okay with it. You know, we talk about that. There was an author, J.D. Netto. He writes fantasy novels, and he approached me about telling my story of because he thought anyone being raised from the dead that's got to be a book. And he uses the analogy of moths and butterflies. It's called the Broken Miracle, and it goes. It's fiction, so it's based on things I'd been through. So it's not really about me, but based on things. And he uses this analogy in such a profound way because the butterflies are beautiful and that's what everybody wants. That's what everyone sees. That's but nobody likes moths, but moths live longer. They are healthier. They have fur. Um, and they can survive all night long. And moths, um, butterflies have to go hide. They're too afraid. They're just not nocturnal. But moths can be around the light and the darkness. It's crazy.
Paul, you have been, I mean, honestly, you have been absolutely phenomenal today. I mean, everyone out there listening, you know why I had this dude on the show. And Mark Willis, what you talking about, Willis? That's what I said that his podcast is going to be. And I told him, I gave him this idea. I said, look, we need to get together. We need to partner together, and we need to create Sweet Tooth. He's going to laugh.
I love it.
Because, so
this is Mark's work right here, everybody.
And it's beautiful. And so when you get a set, like when you get a set of your teeth, one of them will be a sweet tooth to have a little flavor to it, and it'll wear out over time, and then they'll replace that one.
I love it.
Sweet tooth. We're changing the world one tooth at a time.
Mark is the tooth fairy. He really, really is. Just a very expensive one.
Yes, he's the best. And having him on the show was amazing, but it goes to show too that when you put yourself around, amazing people, then it snowballs. And the fact of being able to be around you and get to know you, and now I'm going to force you to be my friend for the rest of your life, Paul.
Dude, love it, man.
But
I love it.
Now's the time.
Thank you for being an influence on me.
Oh, dude.
When I love your posts. I've said this before, but I wake up, I'm like, I wonder what he's posting today. And then I go, man, I got to see, here's the coveting. I'm like, I got to get some notes in my Bible.
I remember the first time that I went, my family is, half of my family is Mexican. And so we went to Catholic church, and I showed up with my Bible, and you don't take a Bible to Catholic church, and you definitely don't mark in it. And I was marking in it, and everyone, like, it was, I thought they were going to throw me out. But it's one of those things. I learned it from my pop. My pop was a constant note taker, and, all that. So, but
I have to tell you,
my
heart is Mexican.
It is?
It is. It came from a Mexican young man. From Baja, Mexico. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Now I work harder for less.
Yes.
I mean, it's not fair.
That's incredible, man. That is awesome.
Yeah. No, I love it. I take a lot of pride in the fact that now I have Mexican heritage.
Are you in touch with the family?
No.
Do they allow you to?
No, because they're in another country.
Okay.
I could write a letter. It's a sad situation, but I wrote a letter that was translated. And all my brothers speak Spanish, but I don't.
Okay.
But I'm the only one with an authentic, Spanish speaking heart.
There we go.
Yeah. It's a sobering thing, but it's absolutely amazing. God would put that new heart in me.
You're an absolute miracle, man. And the way I explained it to my friends, I said, this guy was born with half a heart, but now he puts his full heart into exactly what his purpose is. And you're an example to all of us, Paul. You lift us up, man. And if you haven't checked him out already, if you haven't already stopped the podcast and then went to Cardall.com, you need to go there. You need to listen to his music. I mean, it will change things for you. And I'm so thankful for you being on the show. Everybody out there, if you can share the episode with somebody who needs to hear it, because everybody needs to hear Paul. The more and more that Paul's in the world, I think the better and better off we're going to be. But the thing that I love about it is that Paul is not, again, a superhero. He's a guy who is being positive about something because he went through it, and he's been able to see the trials. And I tell you, a moth among butterflies is it blows me away, Paul. And I can't wait to spend some time with you in the future in person, man.
Kelly, the honor is mine. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You are absolutely incredible, man. You're officially off the hot seat.